I wonder if you could give me some examples of the sustainability measures that you're doing at Gleneagles.
Gleneagles, we see it from kind of 5 key areas. We say, what are we doing around the customers? What are we doing to work with the customers to look at how they're interacting with the environment and delivering what they're coming here for in the first place? What are we doing with our staff? What are we doing about energy? What are we doing with our suppliers? And what are we doing about waste? So within those 5, there's a strategy for each of them. And so it's very important for us that we build on each one of those 5 areas, in that we make sure that from a social point of view, from an economic point of view, and from a waste and climate change point of view, that we are looking at those on the impact and how we can mitigate as much of those as possible. And of course, many of those are cost savings and beneficial to the bottom line, as well as some of them are costs. But in the round, we have to look at it both in total, and we look at it in those 5 areas.
Could you expand a bit on that? And I know that you've got some social initiatives that Gleneagles are doing, and we talked about sustainability being a social and a cultural and an economic thing.
Well, I mean, we have a huge responsibility here at Gleneagles. We are the biggest employer in Perthshire. I think we're the first or second biggest taxpayer in Perthshire. So we have a huge responsibility. We have 600 employees. We're a major part of the locale. So we have a responsibility both to that location, and we also, from the location point of view, that people come here for the very reason that you look out of the windows here and look at everything you see. But we do have, we've always felt we have huge responsibility to those 600 people who work here and the over 100,000 guests who come to stay here, and of course our responsibility within Scotland and further afield.
What about local sourcing of food products?
Local sourcing is an interesting one because it gets you into this climate change versus social, because I always use the example of raspberries on the buffet. If we continue doing what we're doing, or have been doing, then raspberries would be on the buffet every morning for breakfast. Now, raspberries in Scotland are not 12 months a year. So do we continue doing that, or do we have a conversation with the customers that says, no, we need to get back to seasons and say we will have raspberries when they're in season in Scotland, and other times we won't. The flip side of that argument, of course, is what are we doing that damages where those raspberries are coming from the other 9 months of the year? Are we damaging their economy and their social structure? So that's a good example of where local sourcing is important, but you do have to look at the bigger picture and not just say, I'm just going to do local without thinking, what is the impact further afield?
As I was coming up here, I noticed some beautiful wind turbines. What are you doing in Gleneagles as far as environmental sustainability is concerned?
Well, we're looking at all sorts of things, and it's whether it's you saw a wind turbine probably down at our sewage works. We have our own sewage works at Gleneagles, and to sustain that wind turbine gives enough power for that facility. We're also looking at how we're having no more water outfall into the river. Where it used to go, it's now recycled and goes back into the treatment works to do it again. So there are all sorts of initiatives around something as simple as that, where it's self-contained, whether it's on the golf courses, whether it's if you take the biomass boiler that we put in last year, that not only does it save us a considerable amount of money in our energy costs, but it's about 2,000 tonnes of carbon not going to the atmosphere that was going in previously. So it's looking at all sorts of different areas that you can, whenever you can, say, is there an element of waste here? Is there an element where we can reduce carbon? Is there an element where we can protect our environment that we live in the same way that when they built this hotel started in 1906, their vision at that time to create something like this in this setting was hugely visionary. And my always feeling is I have a responsibility. I'm a temporary caretaker, albeit over 25 years, a caretaker of this facility, to make sure that we leave it at least as well, if not better, positioned for the future that they did back in 1906.
A major issue is training, because that has ramifications on the local community. What are you doing as far as training is concerned at Gleneagles?
Huge commitment to training. I mean, our people are the only asset that we have that nobody else has is our people. I mean, lots of places have got lovely golf courses, nice buildings, nice settings, all sorts of lovely things, but they don't have our people. That's the one thing they don't have. So therefore I've always thought that that is our critical strategic asset, and how do we develop that asset in the best possible way we can. And so, and if they're good at what they do and the customer is happy, if the customer is happy, they'll spend more money, and if the customer spend more money, the shareholders will be very happy. I've always seen it in that order. And you know, our job in a business like this is to get people to spend as much money as we possibly can, and them to say that was fantastic. You know, if I could get every single guest leaving here saying it cost me more than I thought I was going to spend, but it was worth every penny, I've cracked it. And that's all down to the staff. That's not down to me. It's down to the people who spend 8 hours of their day looking after those customers. So the whole training and making sure that we give local people and Scottish people opportunity has always been a big important to us. Having said that, about a third of our staff are not British, which is equally important because they bring a different flavour, they push local people, they raise the bar all the time. So you know, it's that balance you need to get all the time, which seems to work well for us.
Often, when a really good establishment opens up in an area, it spawns other establishments to open around it. You've got a tremendous reputation here as far as food is concerned. What's happened as a result of that in the local area?
Yes, I think it's the interesting thing about resorts like this. It's the totality. You know, you've got to be looking at the golf, you've got to be looking at the food, you've got to look at the room experience, you've got to look at the spa experience. You know, we just opened a huge spa, which is about the 5th time in my 25 years we've redone the spa. And that's because that market has grown. Now, partly it's our leadership, partly it's the consumer driving things in that direction. But it's responding to all of those parts. And the interesting thing about running a resort as opposed to a city centre hotel is that you've got a much wider, multifaceted product, if you like. And that requires different kinds of people, different kinds of investment, different kinds of ways of doing things, and always looking for those new innovations that are going to push it that much further.
You have the Gold Award from the Green Tourism Business Scheme, and you must be certainly the most high-profile member of the scheme in Scotland. What are your views as far as sustainable certification is concerned?
I mean, Visit Scotland, and I've been involved with Visit Scotland for many years, and the Green Business Tourism Scheme has been going for over 11 years now, and we were a very early proponent of it, very early supporter, and I think one of the early Gold Star Award winners. But that is a very important scheme both to the hotel and to Scotland. And I think the important thing about that is that it's about as much about bottom line as it is about doing the right things. And I think more and more people are seeing the social and responsible bottom line as important as their financial bottom line, and how closely they're linked. And if you look at the Green Business Tourism Scheme, what Visit Scotland has created there are as many opportunities for small businesses actually to improve their bottom line. I mean, the whole issue around waste, for example, actually if you address the waste issue, it saves you a lot of money. And so when small businesses say, oh, why it cost me a lot of money to get into that scheme and why should I do it? The reason to get into it is actually it's to your benefit, not only because we see a very huge growing demand for it, the consumer of the future, my sons, for example, and their generation, plus actually the people with my coloured hair who, with the changing demographics, are going to be the customers here of the future as well. Both of those sets of customers are asking these questions already, and we're seeing that as a fast-growing trend. So programs like Green Business Tourism Scheme is very important from a customer's point of view, very important from the staff's point of view because they take it very seriously, and very important from a Scottish point of view because Scotland is perceived as clean, green, unspoiled. And the danger for any brand is if it is not delivering what the perception is. That's the kiss of death for any brand. So we must make sure that those are working together.
I find it fascinating when you're telling me about all of the green initiatives that you're doing here at Gleneagles that you actually don't say anything about. How do you think that your customers respond to the green approach?
I think there are several parts. One is I think there is a growing interest in the market anyway. So I think there is a growing sense among various parts of our market mix that is asking the question. Some of those are companies asking the question, many are individuals. So there's that part of it. There's a growing pressure from staff. There's a growing feeling from within our business, and has been for a long time, that we have a responsibility to both the area, to this building, to the area future. But I do think the market is moving towards a position where more and more people are and will be asking, what are you doing? And there will be a growing expectation. It's interesting, if I go back 20 years where nobody asked for a spa, but now everybody asks for a spa. And I think it's a little like that with this subject, where people will be asking in future, well, what are you doing? And almost as wanting to see your report on what you've done over previous years and what you're doing now. And I would like to get to that position where we're very open and have a report annually that says, here's what we're doing, here's what our customers have contributed, here's what the staff have contributed, here's what we're doing around waste, energy, and our suppliers, which is a big issue.
You've been in the luxury hotel business for a long time.
All my life.
And it's truly an art. How do you see the future for that part of the marketplace?
I see a ever increasing demanding customer, and the questions you were asking around the environmental, their questions will be part of that challenge, and part of that more demanding questions around that. I think they'll be more demanding of quality of service. I think the expectations of what they get in terms of product and service will be higher. And I think the market generally seems to be splitting, in my opinion, at the moment down in two parts. One is the commodity hotel, as I might call it, which is where you stay overnight. It's a clean room, it's Sky TV, a good shower, a comfortable bed, and it's £59 a night. Thank you very much. You're there 7 hours and gone. So you've got that at one end, and you've got the experience, if you like, at the other, experiential type property like this, where you're going to escape, to get to learn something new, to experience something new, and to do something, and to celebrate and do other things. So I think where the change is going to happen is in the middle, and there's a big market for Scotland that is in the middle. So I think one of the things that's starting to change is the traditional bed and breakfasts and guest houses will have to start changing. Either the quality will move up and they will be delivering more for the amount of money, for what better value for money, or they may start to suffer.